From the very tip of the African continent emerges a story so powerful, so fraught with struggle, and so ultimately triumphant that it continues to inspire the world. This is the story of South Africa, a nation forged in the fires of conflict, oppression, and an unyielding fight for freedom. It's a journey from ancient kingdoms to a colonial outpost, through the darkest days of racial segregation, to the birth of a vibrant, modern democracy. This is the story of how a nation, led by figures of incredible courage, overcame the impossible to build a future based on hope and reconciliation. So, let's explore this incredible history, from its earliest days to the rainbow nation we know today. Our story begins long before European ships appeared on the horizon. For thousands of years, the land was home to the Khoisan peoples, the San hunter-gatherers, and the Khoikhoi pastoralists. Later, Bantu-speaking groups migrated from the north, establishing sophisticated societies and kingdoms. This ancient world was irrevocably changed in 1652 when the Dutch East India Company, led by Jan van Riebeeck, established a small refreshment station at the Cape of Good Hope. This tiny settlement was the seed from which a new, complex, and often brutal society would grow. Dutch settlers, who became known as Boers or Afrikaners, began to expand inland, claiming land and coming into conflict with the indigenous peoples. Then, in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, another colonial power arrived, Great Britain. The British took control of the Cape, and their influence spread. The cultural and political clash between the British and the Boers led to the Great Trek in the 1830s, where thousands of Boers moved into the interior to escape British rule, establishing their own republics. This expansion led to more wars and dispossession of African lands. The situation intensified dramatically in the late 19th century with two monumental discoveries, diamonds in Kimberley and gold in the Witwatersrand. This wasn't just a treasure hunt, it was a catalyst that transformed the region forever. Fortune seekers from all over the world flooded in. The newfound wealth fueled British imperial ambitions, leading directly to the Anglo-Boer Wars. These were bitter conflicts, but by 1910, the British and the Boers had reconciled their differences at the expense of the black majority. They came together to form the Union of South Africa, a self-governing dominion within the British Empire, but one where power was firmly and exclusively in white hands. This consolidation of white minority rule laid the groundwork for one of the most infamous systems of institutionalized racism in human history. In 1948, the National Party came to power on a platform of apartheid, an Afrikaans word meaning apartness. This wasn't just segregation, it was a meticulously designed system to control every aspect of life for non-white South Africans. People were classified by race: white, colored, Indian, and black. The Population Registration Act defined who you were, the Group Areas Act dictated where you could live, and the Bantu Education Act ensured an inferior education for black children, designed to prepare them for a life of servitude. Interracial marriage was banned. Black people were stripped of their citizenship and forced into impoverished, designated homelands. It was a system of total economic, social, and political oppression, enforced with brutal state power. But where there is oppression, there is always resistance. The spirit of freedom could not be extinguished. Anti-apartheid movements grew in strength and determination. The African National Congress, or ANC, originally formed in 1912, became the leading force in the struggle. The resistance started with petitions and nonviolent protests, but the government's response was consistently violent. A turning point came on March 21, 1960, in the township of Sharpeville. A crowd of unarmed protesters gathered to demonstrate against the hated pass laws, which required black South Africans to carry internal passports. Police opened fire on the crowd, killing 69 people and injuring hundreds more, many of whom were shot in the back as they tried to flee. The Sharpeville massacre sent shockwaves around the world and marked the end of peaceful protests for the main resistance movements. The ANC and other groups were banned, and they went underground, forming armed wings like Umkhonto we Sizwe, or Spear of the Nation. At the heart of this struggle was a young lawyer, a man whose name would become synonymous with the fight for justice, Nelson Mandela. Born into a royal family, Mandela was drawn to activism by the injustices he witnessed. He joined the ANC and quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a key leader in the defiance campaigns of the 1950s and a co-founder of Umkhonto we Sizwe after Sharpeville. His activism made him a primary target for the apartheid state. In 1964, during the Rivonia trial, Mandela and his comrades were charged with sabotage. Facing the death penalty, Mandela delivered a legendary speech from the dock, a thorough declaration of his principles, ending with the immortal words, "I have fought against white domination. And I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." He was spared execution but sentenced to life imprisonment. Mandela would spend the next 27 years behind bars, most of them on the notorious Robben Island. He became the world's most famous political prisoner, a global symbol of the anti-apartheid struggle. While he was locked away, the movement continued, both inside South Africa and internationally, with boycotts, sanctions, and constant pressure on the apartheid regime. By the late 1980s, South Africa was at a breaking point. The country was internationally isolated, its economy was crippled by sanctions, and internal resistance was making the country ungovernable. The apartheid government was forced to accept that the system was unsustainable. In 1990, the new president, F.W. de Klerk, stunned the world. He announced the banning of the ANC and other political organizations and, most momentously, the unconditional release of Nelson Mandela. On February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison a free man, after 27 long years. His release wasn't the end of the struggle, but the beginning of the final chapter. The next 4 years were a period of intense and often difficult negotiations between the government, the ANC, and other political parties. They had to dismantle the entire legal framework of apartheid and create a new, democratic constitution from scratch. The process was threatened by political violence, but the leadership of Mandela and de Klerk held the country together, steering it away from the brink of civil war. Their efforts would earn them the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Finally, on April 27, 1994, the day arrived. For the first time in South Africa's history, every citizen, regardless of race, was able to vote. Long lines of people snaked for miles, waiting patiently for their turn to cast a ballot. It was a day of incredible joy, a celebration of a hard-won victory. As expected, the ANC won a landslide victory, and Nelson Mandela became the first president of a truly democratic South Africa. Mandela's presidency was defined by his extraordinary spirit of reconciliation. Instead of seeking revenge for the injustices of the past, he preached forgiveness and unity. He famously wore the jersey of the Springboks, the national rugby team that was once a symbol of white Afrikaner pride, during the 1995 Rugby World Cup. A gesture that united the nation in a powerful way. He established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a groundbreaking court-like body where victims of gross human rights abuses could give statements and perpetrators of violence could give testimony and request amnesty. It was a painful but necessary process to confront the past in order to build a shared future. Nelson Mandela's legacy is that of a statesman who, after decades of imprisonment, chose peace over bitterness and equality over division. He showed the world that even the deepest wounds can begin to heal and that a society torn apart by hatred can be rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect. South Africa's journey is far from over, and the nation still faces many challenges. But its story remains a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring quest for freedom and justice. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as moving and important as we do, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time.